Hello everyone, this is Jamie with FLA Tutoring, and today we're talking about multiplying matrices. And if you're not familiar with matrices, just check out the video on matrices and their introduction. This video assumes that you already have a basic understanding of what they are and what we're doing with them. So the first thing that we have to note when we're multiplying matrices is what are we looking to have as the outcome. When we have an outcome here, we have to have a specific order as we multiply. And you're going to find that when we multiply them out, each of these matrices sets or matrix sets will represent a certain row or column. So the one here that we have on the left hand side is going to be what gives us how many rows there are. So I'm going to put under here rows, R-O-W-S. What we multiply by, what we're adding to, that is, on the right hand side will give us the column amount. So this is the columns. And in this case, as you can see, we only have one, so that means we're only going to have one column. And if we had only one here, it might be row or rows. So what we have to do is we have to multiply each of these parts against each of these parts. And where students get most confused is where you have to multiply each part. So I'm going to highlight it as I go along just so you can see. Alright, so let's change the color real quick to something that is a little bit more different so we can see the differences. Okay, so we're using red. So when we start here at the top at the 3. And we multiply that 3 by the first part in here. So if we're creating a new matrix, I'm just going to scroll down real quick, down below. Our 3 is going to multiply by that 1. So I'm going to just note that we're going to have this 3 right here times the 1. And that is our first multiplication. Then we add just put that addition a little bit more legible. Then we add the next multiplication, and you're going to note that in order to go to the next one, we have to move to the right. So now we're going to move over to this one, and for the 1, we're going to multiply it against the 2. So what happens there is that we go 1 times 2. So just note the order. Note that we're moving from left to right across here, and we're moving top to bottom on the second one. And you'll notice that as we go along again, note how this will say how many rows we have. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and there's 1 column here. So you'll see how that pans out at the end. So our final number in this row is -1, and we're going to multiply that by the 1 over here. So we're going to add a -1 times the 1 that is in the other matrix. And just like that, we have our first row done, at least in the portion of the pre-final math portion. Alright, so let's take a look now. We're following the exact same methods that we just did. So if you picked up on the first one, you'll note we're going to do 1 times the 1 over here. So that's just 1 times 1. And now we're going to add the second part, 2. And it's going to move again. Each time we move over, we're also moving over in the other matrix. So that becomes 2 times 2. I'm sorry if this is going a little slow, but I have so much experience with people getting confused on this that I think it's important just to go slowly so you just see where these are going and you take the time to process it. This third one again, third time, 2 times the 1. And just notice again, we're adding each part together. And that is of the multiplication of the respective element. The respective element is here. We said 1 for 1, 2 for 2, 2 for the 1, and we're just matching it up piece by piece. And I'll draw some arrows at the end too just to highlight it. Okay. Now, what do we have here? We're on the third row, and so we have a -1. What's that going to be multiplied by? That -1, it's going to be multiplied by the 1. At this point, I think we're starting to get it. We're starting to see, okay, I see the pattern. We have a 0 that's going to get plus a 0 times 2. And just keep noting that we're adding each multiple. We're adding each thing that's being multiplied. And it's very important that you keep these things together and right, because if you mess up one little piece, one sign wrong, one thing wrong, it's, you know, you're going to have a very screwy result. And a lot of people get confused here because there's just so many steps, and they really are a pain to do, but you got to do it. And you have to do it meticulously. All right, we're now on the last one. Again, it's the same process. We have 4. We're going to multiply it by that first 1. Same thing. So just to emphasize, just like we did, you know, with this top part, we multiplied by the 1. -1 times the 1 over here. We had 0, we multiplied it by that 2 again. Then we had that 5, we multiplied by that 1. Now we're doing the same thing, 4 times the 1. Now we're doing 1 times the 2. Just always keep them respecting the exact same one that they are multiplying in order. So plus 1 times the 2. And the last one is 2 times the 1. So now we're adding the plus 2 times the 1. Okay, so there is our new matrix. It's almost done. We haven't actually added things together, but now we have an understanding of what we're seeing at the final result. We now can see that we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 rows. And why do we have that? Because this first multiplier, this first matrix that we had to start with told us how many rows we have. And what we multiply it by tells us how many columns we have. So you're like, wait, aren't there multiple columns here, JB? I see, you know, you have all these different numbers across. We have this, you know, 3 times 1 plus 1 times 2 plus -1 times 1. And you're right, but that's because we haven't finished it yet. We actually have to add those all together. And when we do add them all together, then we're going to have our final answer. And you'll see that it will give us the final column amount. So let's just position this so that we can put this all together. All right. Again, meticulous at each portion, because if you have anything that's wrong, it screws up the matrix. So let's go piece by piece and add these together. We have 3 times 1, and we're using our PEMDAS here, the multiplication before the addition and subtraction. If you're not familiar with the PEMDAS, check out the PEMDAS video so you can refresh. So 3 times 1 is 3, and then if we add it together over here, we get 1 times 2, that is 2, plus a -1 times 1. -1 times 1 is -1, and we're adding a -1, and so we're going to add a, or we could just say we're going to take away 1, right? So this is one step before the final, but I just want you to see that we're doing this very orderly. All right, so the second row, that's our first one. Second row, we have 1 times 1 is 1. And then we have 2 times 2, so 2 times 2 is, we're adding a 4. And then we have 2 times 1, so that's plus 2. Third row, we have a -1 times 1. That gives us our -1 here. Plus 0 times 2. Well, anything times 0 is obviously going to be 0, so plus 0. I'll just leave it there just so that you see it, what we're doing and what's going on. And then we have plus 5 times 1. So 5 times 1 is 5, so plus 5. We go to the bottom, and now we have our last row. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 times 2 is 2, plus 2 times 1 is 2. So as you can see here, these are going to be summarized into a simple number because we can simplify the answer once we add them all together. So 3 plus 2 is 5, minus 1 is 4. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 2 is 7. -1 plus 0 is nothing, so it's -1 plus 5. Well, 5 actually minus 1 is going to be 4. 4 plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. 4, 7, 4, 8. this becomes our final matrix here once we've added them together. So what does that mean? It means that after you've multiplied these two matrices together, your final answer is going to be matrix bars with 4, 7, 4, and 8. And again, notice right here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows and only one column. And as I said from the beginning, I'm going to scroll back up now. As I said from the beginning, our first matrices, this matrix right here, matrix 1. We have our matrix 2 here. Not like the movie. There's no Neo here. This is going to tell us, our original matrix, what we have in terms of rows. So as you saw, there's 4 rows here, and this is going to tell us what we have in terms of columns. As you can see, there's 1 column here. So scrolling down again, what's our final answer? It has the 4 rows and the 1 column. And that is the introduction to how to multiply matrices when you're using multiple matrices. You're not just multiplying a single number times the entire matrix. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon more about other types of matrices.